Greetings, everyone, and apologize for the brief delay, but we're very pleased. I'm Larry Diamond, coordinating our Israel Visiting Fellows program here at the Freeman Spogli Institute. We're very pleased to be sponsoring this webinar today on environmental lessons and implications of the Gaza war with an excellent panel of 4 speakers and our own esteemed visiting scholar, Alon Tal, moderating this session. Alon is a professor of environmental studies at Tel Aviv University. He's teaching a course this quarter on environmental policy in the Middle East. He's a former member of the Israeli Knesset and a professor of environmental and public policy at Tel Aviv University. Alon, it's wonderful to have you with us this quarter and past quarter, teaching our students and helping us understand environmental issues in Israel and the Middle East. Thank you for moderating this session, and I'll leave it to you now to introduce our speakers.
Well, thank you so much, Larry. I'm going to just, by 1 or 2 minutes to frame the discussion, in the book of Deuteronomy, we have an important passage which suggests that the impact of war in the Middle East is nothing new. Many of you are familiar when it says, when you besiege a city for a long time in making war, you shall not destroy the trees, for is the tree human that it should be besieged and cut down. And there is much to be said about the present conflict in Gaza, and there is much debate. This session is not going to discuss how it started, who's to blame, how the war is conducted, except to recognize that when the dust settles, the Israelis will be here, the Palestinians will be here, and the environment will be here. And we need to learn how to work together to do a better job and make sure that we can preserve and protect the environmental values in Israel and in Gaza and in the Palestinian world in general, in Palestine, so that maybe we could do better. And I'm very, very delighted that we have assembled 4 terrific scholars, experts, and activists to address this. 2 of them are on your screen, and 2 of them are solving technical difficulties, but fortunately, the first 2 speakers are with us. And so what I'll do is, I think as each one is introduced, we'll speak for 10 minutes, and I will introduce them, and then we'll have time for discussion. Larry and I might offer a question initially, and then, of course, we'll open this up to the participants. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank Kate Tominska for organizing this important event. And let's get to our first speaker. Galit Cohen. Today, her title is Director of the Program on Climate Change at the Israel Institute for National Security. But anybody who's worked in the environment in Israel for the last 25 years knows that Galit Cohen has been a central figure in Israel's environmental ministry, rising up the ranks for many years, oversaw policy and programming there as the Deputy Director, and her most recent position culminated as Director General, overseeing the entire Ministry of Environment during the previous government, which had, by our standards, an extremely favorable environmental record. We are delighted that she's bringing her considerable talents and knowledge to this challenge of global issues and climate change, and in particular, security. And so therefore, I've asked her to start off our conversation. Subsequently, we'll be hearing from my friend and colleague, Dr. Tarek Abu Hamid, and then we'll hear from Ms. Dorit Bennett and Victor Weiss. But Galit, why don't you get the ball rolling, and I'm going to make sure that you have access to screen shaving if you should need it. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Just make sure that the slideshow is on slideshow, and I don't think it is.
It was working just fine. It was.
Well, now.
Great.
This is not the first slide, so let's start. So thank you, Alon. Thank you very much for having me today, for inviting me to speak today. And I'll try to share my my knowledge about the environmental challenges in Gaza. I'll try to give a bit of information about what happens and what was the situation before the October 7th, and then what is after October 7th, and looking forward, hopefully, for the end of the war and what is going to be the environmental challenges then. So let's start. So if you're looking about the Gaza Strip, and there is a map here that you can see, it's really the most populated, densely populated area in the world. You can see the densely populated, and also before the 7th of October, and it was written and published in July 2022. That was the situation. Poor infrastructure, sanitation conditions, also lack of water, food, health conditions, and also energy instability. So the situation before was very bad. If we're looking about the water issues, and I will focus my presentation today about the water, sewage, and also waste in Gaza. So about the water, there was already a gap of more than 100 cubic meter per year in Gaza. Most of the water in Gaza, drinking water, came from the pumping from the aquifer. About 154 desalination plants, which means very, very small one, and also not well maintained and not by licensing. So it wasn't really licensed, more than 100 of them. So the operation wasn't so good. The quality of the water also wasn't so good. And this is 90% of the water in Gaza. Just 10% of the water supplement by the Israeli pipelines, three pipelines, but it is very small amount of the water. About the sewage, they used to have 7 wastewater treatment facilities, but this is also only for 70,000 cubic meter of sewage, and the rest of about more than 40,000 cubic meter were untreated and discharged directly to the sea, to the Mediterranean, and also to the land, and unfortunately polluting this aquifer that was already very in a very high salinity concentration. So those facilities also not fully operational all the time because they have a lack of energy, and also this is also about the wrong maintenance of those facilities. So if we are looking about all the risks now during the war in Gaza, so it's in all the matter, all the situation, all the, let's say, human conditions. It's about the food and the water security, about the sewage and sanitation, a lot of displaced people and in the shelters, health. Most of the health organization and facilities were destroyed also. They are suffering, of course, from extreme weather, whether it was just this winter, and now we are starting the summer. And of course, there is exposure to infections and diseases. So the current situation, if you're looking about all the environmental issues, all environmental challenges, so it's about the water security and about the sewage and sanitation, also construction waste. So there is a drainage, all the list of those issues that need to mitigate and also need to deal with. And I will, as I mentioned, I will focus on the water, the sewage, and construction waste. So if we're looking about the water, about 57% assessed by WASH, facilities damaged or destroyed, including the desalination plants in the northern and it's also in the middle areas. About more than 160 water wells, and also those pipelines that used to be from Israel, there was only one from those three. Israel tried to coordinate repair and work for the 3 pumps at UNICEF desalination plant in Deir al-Balah, but providing approximately 50,000 residents. As I mentioned before, there is 2.1 million people in Gaza. So the assessment, they have the assessment now, they have only about 3 or 7 liters per day, per person per day, and which is very, very low, and minimum is about 50 to 10 liters per day. This is the assessment of the UN, and just published a new report by the UN, World Bank, and the EU. What we can see from December 18, there is a new desalination plant from Egypt to Rafah that built by the UAE and providing about 4.5 billion liters of clean water per day. And that supplement for the more than hundreds of thousands of residents. And there is a second pipeline that started to work. This is from the December 27 from Israel. And there is also in March 16, when the people start to go back, let's say, to the north, or maybe they were before. And we know that some of those people that still stay in the northern Gaza, even they asked to displace to the south. So it's about 2,000 people, 2,100 people that suffering from also from this water shortage, but they have now this 5 pumping facilities. Of course, this is from those pumping from this aquifer that we spoke before about this condition. About the solid, the sewage and the solid waste. So today, as I try to understand from COGAT and from all the reports that I wrote, there is no active wastewater treatment facility now in Gaza. And we do understand that because they have lack of fuels, so there is no energy. When they have a lack of fuels and energy, electricity, the first act that they are doing every time is just to close the sewage treated plants. So about more than 100 cubic meter of sewage and wastewater just discharged daily to the land or into the Mediterranean, to the sea. So it's polluting all this area and of course this aquifer. About the solid waste, there is only one that 5 out of the 6 Gaza municipal waste was managed facilities have been substantial damage, so it's not functional at all. So there is only one. So most of it is just deposited in makeshift locations and sipping hazardous substance into the soil, the coastal water further, and also of course the aquifer that's suffering from this waste also. Okay, so if we are looking about this current situation in the building infrastructure, so about 60, this is really the last report that I mentioned before, 60% of the physical infrastructure is in all sectors have damaged. You can see that the most damaged area is in Gaza City and Khan Yunis also. So about the air and soil pollution is also emission of harmful gases and particle pollutants into the atmosphere, of course, by burning the solid waste that I mentioned before, and also chemicals and weapons seriously contaminated the land, air, and water, which has an impact on agriculture, food safety, and also, of course, the public health. So what they need to do to in the restoration, the environmental challenges in the restoration. So I thought about those places, the sewage, first the sewage, to renovation of large parts of the sewage infrastructure. It's the pipes, it's not just the facilities. And of course, they have to establish additional sewage treatment facilities to respond to the return of the residents, so they will have the facilities already should be built, but they haven't enough even before the war. About the water resources, they must stop pump from the aquifer because the salinity is very, very high. This is and just to desalinate this water and again, bringing again and again the same problem, it's better to build a desalination plant in the coast, like we have in Israel and other places, about 2 or 3 desalination plants, each one about 100, 200 million cubic meter a year. And that could be the best, I think, solution for them. They are paying already a lot for the water. So I don't think it's just about the cost of the desalinated water. Yes, there is a problem about the water price for the agriculture, because you don't use desalinated water for agriculture. But if they will have these sewage treatment plants, so they will have those treated water to use for the agriculture, and the desalinated water just for drinking water and maybe for commerce or other uses. About the drainage, it's also very, very important. Now, all the drainage basin is damaged. And looking about the Gaza river, and there is some rivers there that to restore the drainage basins and also ensure the continuation of flow in order to prevent flooding in the entire area, and then of course disease and all those. And about the construction waste, they can recycling, shredding facilities for the on-site, and use these recycled materials for paving roads and construction in Gaza, so they don't have to move it to other places. About the soil contamination, so of course there is a lot of contaminated soil, and they can also here try to monitor and treat it on site as much as possible. The air pollution, we do understand that the air pollution will decrease significantly when they end the war, but it must be taken into account that there is more corpses buried under the rubbles, and the preparations must be made to collect them in order to prevent epidemics and diseases. This is from this report that I mentioned, the overall, let's say, expenses for all the sectors to rehabilitate a building. You can see all the sectors here is more than $18 billion right now. And the last slide that I would like to mention is that we have to move. It's all over the Israelis and of course the Palestinians and all the countries that are very involved in to move the transition from humanitarian aid to civil mechanisms, and that means trying to first to build the institutionals and the government that can take the responsibility of the civil society there. And I hope that we will find together something that will work, and will continue and will rebuild this area again. Thank you very much.
I want to thank you for giving such a broad thing. I've been asked by other panelists who are getting on, but just to state something which almost doesn't need to be said, but I think it does, and that is to say that although we're talking about professional issues and scientific issues, everybody is acutely aware of the human price of the present war and expresses sympathy for the enormous loss on all sides, Palestinian and Israeli, and with the prayers that at some time we'll find a way to live in better harmony together and avoid these kind of discussions and not have to have this. Our second speaker, I'm particularly grateful for Dr. Tariq Abu Hamid's participation. Dr. Abu Hamid is the director of the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies, a leading regional environmental think tank, research center, and teaching center. after completing his doctorate in chemical engineering at Ankara University, continued on with a postdoc at the Weizmann Institute. He had also a storied career in government, reaching the position of acting chief scientist at the Ministry of Science. He has since had various roles at the Arava Institute and is a leading environmental leader in the region, and lives in East Jerusalem. We're so grateful for you to be with us today, Tarek. I hope you're doing okay. You have the floor.
Thank you, Alon. Good afternoon, everyone. And huge thanks to the Israel Studies Program for hosting us in this important panel. In the next 10 minutes, I will be shortly talking about the work of the Arava Institute to give you the background of the reasons that we do this regional environmental cooperation in the Middle East. And the second part of the talk, I will focus on our regional initiatives with the focus on the Gaza Strip before and after the war. And actually, the talk of Galit was wonderful introduction to my talk, and probably this will help me do my talk in a shorter time. The Arava Institute was founded by Professor Alon Tal, is an academic and research institution that advances cross-border environmental cooperation in the face of the political conflict. When we talk about the Middle East, Israel and its neighbors, we talk about a region that most of the natural resources are shared. The surface water is shared, and actually 60% of the fresh water that this region receives has a transboundary aspect. That means streams and rivers originating in Israel, ends in the West Bank, or originates in Jordan and ends in Israel. The vast majority of the aquifer, of the underground water in our region, is shared between Israel and its neighbors. It's shared between Jordan and its neighbors. It's shared between Palestine and its neighbors. That means if there's an environmental challenge, environmental issue with the water that we have, one country alone cannot deal with it. And regional cooperation is a must. And this is what we do at the Arava Institute. You know, our region, it's dynamic, and we have a lot of conflict. And when you want to do a cooperation, sometimes this conflict prevents you from running these projects or doing this cooperation. So the recipe of the Arava Institute is science and environmental diplomacy. We use environment as a tool. We use science as a diplomacy tool to bring people together. And that's not enough. We use environment, we use science to build bridges, to build trust, to build understanding. We use science, environment to help people to see the human in the other. And that's what we need to cope with this conflict, to deal with these environmental challenges. The region that we live in is a hotspot when it comes to climate change. The heat waves, the sea level rise, the acidity of the Eastern Mediterranean is increasing. The average warming is much higher than any other place in the world. The temperature of the Eastern Mediterranean is rising in very high averages compared to the other oceans in the region. So when it comes to climate change, regional and global cooperation is a must. And if that is not done based on trust, we did nothing. And the Arava Institute builds this trust to do regional cooperation based on mainly two pillars. The first one is academic program, university level program, where we bring Arab students, Palestinians from Israel, Palestinians from Palestine, West Bank and Gaza, Jordanians, Moroccans, Sudanese, Jewish Israelis, international students to an academic program where they study the environment. It's a full-time academic program, 3 to 4 months. They live together. The institute is located in the southern part of Israel in a kibbutz. That means the students go to the same dining room, to the same classroom, and at the end of the day, they share rooms. That means they live 24/7 with each other. And using this academic program, we actually produce the future leaders that can solve the region's environmental challenges. Through this academic program, we build trust, we build a community that cares about the climate issues of the region. And the second major pillar is our research programs, our projects that we implement in the region. We have research centers that deal with renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, climate change, transboundary water management, social, political ecology. And the vast majority of the research and the projects that we conduct in the region, we do that in full cooperation with our neighbors, with Israel, with the Palestinians, with the Jordanians, with the Moroccans. And because we are an institution with a mission to advance cross-border environmental cooperation, we do also a lot of projects that are not scientific. We implement projects in the region. And I'll give you a few examples of that. The Arava Institute installed drinking water projects in Gaza. This was previous to October 7th. Projects that generated drinking water from air. And we did that in full cooperation with our Palestinian partners in Gaza. We managed to bring from Gaza engineers and technicians for training on water, energy, food nexus. We have projects in the northern part of the West Bank on off-grid technologies to treat wastewater. In the Jordan Valley on solar pumping, solar desalination, and again, projects to produce drinking water and treat wastewater to provide people with the water that they need to continue their agricultural activities. When it comes into Gaza, as Galit very well explained, the situation in Gaza was huge catastrophe before October 7th, and still a major catastrophe today. The intense bombing of Gaza has significantly damaged the farmlands, infrastructure. This includes apartment buildings, the roads, water treatment plants, wastewater treatment plants, and also the water wells. And we are talking about Gaza, which has tens of refugee camps that still use asbestos in their buildings. The destruction of this asbestos causes a huge public health issue. The amount of particulate matter in the air, not only from the asbestos, also from the building, is a huge challenge now in Gaza. The damage that infrastructure got, mainly the sewage infrastructure. That means all the sewage now infiltrates into the coastal aquifer, which is shared between Gaza and Israel. And prior to the 7th of October, actually 75% of the aquifer was polluted by sewage. And when we looked at the situation of Gaza before the 7th of October, it's the major reason that Gaza does not have the technologies or the capacity to deal with the environmental issues is because of the lack of electricity. The lack of electricity prevents Gazans from treating the wastewater, from desalinating the wastewater. And the situation right now is much more in a catastrophic situation. The untreated wastewater doesn't only infiltrate into the aquifer, it also dumped into the Eastern Mediterranean. And the streams in the Eastern Mediterranean are south-north. That means the pollution doesn't stay on the Gaza beaches. It goes to Ashkelon, which is a neighboring city north into the Gaza Strip. And this city is a home for one of the largest desalination plants in the world. And this pollution doesn't stay within Gaza. It goes into Israel. So it's crosses the border, and this is what we believe in here in the region, that nature knows no borders, pollution knows no borders. The vast majority, this is according to research that was done last month by a research institution in the UK, that estimates that 99% of the carbon dioxide emissions that they were generated in Israel and Palestine during the first 2 months are contributed to the war, to the aerial bombardments and the ground invasion of Gaza. The climate cost of the first 2 months of the Israeli military response was equivalent to burning at least 150,000 tons of coal. The cost of rebuilding Gaza's building, which is, construction is a major contribution to the carbon dioxide emissions. Just building 100,000 apartments in Gaza, this will produce at least 30 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions. And we know that today in Gaza, there is more than 40 million tons of building rubble in Gaza. So this is the situation. This is the impact of the war on Gaza. What are we doing here at the Arava Institute to deal with these environmental challenges? The Arava Institute started a project called the Jump-Starting Hope. This project is led by the Palestinian organization that's supported by the Arava Institute, and this is the work that we do at the Arava Institute. Most of the projects that we do it in full cooperation with our Palestinian partners. look, the essential supply of water, sanitation, and hygiene, and the energy services for the 2.2 million people in Gaza cannot wait for to rebuild the infrastructure and houses. This requires immediate response to provide people with the water that they need, with the technologies that treat the wastewater in Gaza. And again, Gaza needs immediate relief with resilient, adaptable infrastructure networks. And in order to do that, we have to apply what we call the off-grid technologies, decentralized wash and energy interventions, off-grid technologies to produce electricity, off-grid technologies to produce the drinking water that the Gazans need, off-grid technologies to treat the wastewater that the people generate in Gaza. The Arava Institute, with its Palestinian partners, have a proven track record of establishing a wide range of cross-border off-grid technologies. As I explained, we have these technologies in Gaza, we have these technologies in the West Bank, and this coalition of organizations that led by a Palestinian partner with the help of the Arava Institute is very well positioned to lead the deployment of these technologies. When we talk about Gaza, Gaza is a place where have 2.2 million people. I don't know if you know the vast majority of this population is below the age of 30. That means we're talking about 1.5 million people that are young, that most of them university graduates. They have nothing to do. They don't have jobs. They have nothing to lose. So having these technologies, having these capacity building programs will give people jobs. Jobs will give people hope to get the simple off-grid technologies to produce the water and treat the wastewater that they need, not only for agriculture, but also to solve one of the region's most important environmental challenges. Climate change is not only an environmental issue, which is, with the impact of the war on the climate is huge. In Gaza, its situation is catastrophic. And we want people to stay. We want people to stay in Gaza. We want people to stay in the West Bank. We want people to stay in Israel. We want people to stay in Jordan. And if we look to the population growth on the agricultural parts of the Middle East and in Palestine, Jordan, and also in Gaza, we see that the population growth is stable. That means there is no growth, which means people leave their land and migrate to the US, migrate to Europe, migrate to other cities in the region, and this increases the instability in the region. So climate change is not only an environmental issue, but also a first-degree security issue. So through the work of the Arava Institute, we not only solve the region's environmental challenges, but we also contribute to the stability of the region. And my last comment will be, or my note will be for those who celebrate Ramadan Mubarak. And in 2 days we will celebrate the Eid, and I wish all of you happy Eid. And thank you so much for having me.
And a happy Ramadan and Eid to you as well. I think you do a good job of jump-starting hope with me at a time when it's always not as easy to find. We have some technical challenges, but we're certainly going to try. Our third panelist, Dorit Bennett, is a activist from the south of Israel, actually lives not too far from the Arava Institute, and she was instrumental in making that part of the country 100% renewable in terms of energy during the daytime, the first, I think, place in the world that had 100% solar during the day, and then brought her experience and knowledge as a consultant to the agency which is working on there. And so we're going to try to have her hooked up by phone and show her PowerPoint describing how she feels that when we talk about rebuilding the Israeli side of it, maybe we can do it in a more sustainable way. I don't know if you can hear me, Dorit, but I hope you can, and I hope that we can hear you.
Do you hear me?
I can hear you. If you can speak up a little louder or give her a little more volume, that's great. Go ahead.
Now you can hear me better?
Yes, go right ahead. This is terrific.
So thank you, and sorry for the technology disruption. We will try to, human being can overcome those technologies. So we'll try. So Ezra asks me, my name is Dorit, and I'm from the Eilat Ilot region, southern part of Israel. Yes, I'm a specialist in renewable energy. We took the energy as a catalyst for regional development here. And in the last month, I worked with the Tkuma region. And this is the region where the Israeli side on the border with Gaza had to suffer what happened in the October 7th. And now we are trying to see what would be the recovery of this region after we recover the people, the houses, the culture, the beliefs to go back to this region. And so I wanted to give some details about this region, the west border, the West Israel border with Gaza. It's about 1,200,000 dunams, that means 120,000 acres. It's 5.4% of the land of Israel. The population till October was not so big, but I don't know what would be after. But right now we're speaking about around 200,000 people living in 1.8% of the land of Israel. If you see the presentation, you can see the spot around Gaza Strip where we are speaking about Tkuma. Okay, the Hevel Tkuma is a corridor. It's a really corridor between the south part of Israel and the central part of Israel. The central part of Israel is the most populated region in Israel. And though this why a lot of infrastructures and a lot of roads goes and pipelines and electricity lines go in this region to the center of Israel. We have in this region 3 cities, Sderot, Netivot, and Ofakim. They are not big cities, they are small cities. And the government looks at two parts in this region. The closest part to the Gaza Strip, where it's 0 to 4 kilometers, this is all the rural settlements are sitting there, and Sderot, and 0 to 7 kilometers, where we have 85 settlements. This is a budget issue. They want to help as much as they can to the first row, 0 to 4 kilometers, and then to help the 0 to 7 kilometers. But this is how they divide it. So this is the zone we are speaking on. Next slide, please. The zone is an open space zone. Most of the land is open space, or natural places, or agriculture area. This is the barn, agriculture barn of Israel, okay? Most of the agriculture is being done here in this area we are speaking of. As I said, this is a corridor to the center of Israel. And we should see that now in all the talks about developing this region and helping this region to recover, we have to look at the open areas as also a very important infrastructure. Okay, it's a virtual infrastructure, but we must look at this now, because if we put all industry people wants to bring there now, and all electricity lines and water pipelines and roads, and to enlarge the part of the settlements, if we do that without thinking and designing the region very carefully, we will find ourselves taking the open places that needs to be the nature recovers, and we need a lot of nature recovery in this region. Next slide, please. How to restore all the damaged lands in all this area. But as you see in the circle in the right side of the presentation, 37 of the land is agriculture, 59 of the land nature. There is only 4% is being built there. And we don't want to do a good thing and a bad thing at the same time and start building all those areas. Next slide. Now, after you get an impression about the region, I will get into my perspective of distributed renewable economy and energy resilience. Because in this war, we understand there are two issues. One of the first issues is the energy resilience, because what happened in the war, a lot of shutdowns of electricity for 2 days, 1 day, a week, even 2 weeks. So this is not energy resilience, and this is not a resilience total. So we have to give thought about this issue. And the second thing, how we take this distributed renewable energy into a local economy. And these are two issues that I want to speak regarding this zone after the Gaza war. So we take, I'll give you numbers very fast, you can read, but I'll give you 4.8, 1.8 from those 5% of renewable energy in Israel are being built in Hevel Tchuma. They are installed, there is a 1 gigawatt installed of solar energy, even though my region that I come from is talking almost 100% renewable energy. We are the first, we are the center of renewable energy. So we have only 25% of what they have in Hevel Tchuma. So they have gigawatt installed. The line and all the infrastructures now can reach till 2030 to 2.5 gigawatts, okay? This is the electricity company and the national company plan. They can give this region till 2030 only to 2.5 gigawatts installed. Already, there are 1 gigawatt that are planned, and part of them are approved and they don't have a place in the line, in the transmission line, and they're waiting to those operations to happen. So we have a limit. We have right now a limit, infrastructure limit of 2.5 gigawatts, but it is installed only 1 gigawatt. And this is the graph I want to show you, that the graphs give you a perspective. So if you can see the graph, the base load, the transmission line is 0.9 gigawatt. Okay, this is the gray line. This is now the transmission line. What would happen till 2030? We will reach the transmission line. They don't have many years. They have 6 years to do that. We reach 2.5 gigawatts. Okay, so this will be built and solar fields we will enter this plan. But the main issue here that if we take all the regulation in Israel, if we can take all the land for agrivoltaics, and if we take the land for the solar fields and the land fields that already being in the planning committees in Israel, we can reach 8.6 gigawatt till 2050. And this gap, that is, you have all kinds of scenarios. I won't get into it because it's very local, but the gap is huge. So if the infrastructure can give us in 2030 only 2.5 gigawatts, and we have the potential to more than 8 gigawatts, how we will do that? So this is a huge gap, a huge obstacle that we have to overcome. So we have all kinds of scenarios. Part of it is getting in with a lot of storage, because it also that solar energy in daytime. So we can store many, many hours, and this can give us the option to produce more energy, or getting in the new economy of green hydrogen, that we don't have still an economy, but we can start looking at it and see if this is a good option. The second thing is the resilience, as I said, and with this I will finish. This is the microgrids. So maybe what we need to do is distributed energy is not only by producing distributed energy and by managing it like that. So each house each neighborhood, each settlement, or each zone can work as a microgrid. That means it doesn't need to be connected to the grid. In the daily life, it can be connected to the grid to have the benefits of it. But in the days that there is a problem, we can shut down this connection and work as a microgrid. And this can give much more resilience to the citizens in such areas. And this need to be totally, bring a totally new regulation into Israel that it's very, very hard to do that. And here, because I don't think I have any more time, so this is the regional assets. You can read and see that we have challenges, we have barriers, and this is the situation right now regarding the environment or the green energy situation in Hevel Tchuma.
Thank you so much, Dorit. I'm delighted and grateful to my friend Victor Weiss for his persistence, overcoming great technical obstacles, changing email accounts so he could be with us. We are really, really grateful, and the timing works out well. Victor Weiss is the Director of Sustainability at the Israel National Security Council. He has an interesting career. For many years was a career military man, where he had the privilege of establishing pretty much the environmental protection unit for the Israel Defense Forces. After that, he went on to head the Heschel Center for Sustainability, which is probably Israel's leading think tank about sustainability issues, and established himself as one of the most respected and thoughtful leaders on the issue of sustainability. And then he was hired, to me, when Victor received the position of Director of Sustainability at the Prime Minister's office, the Council of Security, it was a sign that maybe something in the system works after all, because I can't think of anybody more competent. Thank you so much for your patience, Victor. You have 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here. So I just want to frame what we are doing in the National Security Council. We service the Prime Minister staff body for national security issues. Recently, the National Security Council defined the climate issues as strategic threats to Israel's national security. The climate chapter was written in the National Security Council risk assessment, and the main threats were mapped. We are working to define the threats, to formulate the national response to those threats, with different to the effects of the war in Gaza on the climate issues. I would like to present here two central issues. One, the effect of the war on the promoting the response to climate change at the regional and the international level, and my insights from the meeting from the day after the war. So let's start. The effect of the war on the promotion, the dealing with climate change at the regional and international level, we see several issues. One of the effects of the war was the freezing of regional cooperation that led by a prosperity project and the cooperation with United Emirates, which were intended to help build regional resilience to the effects of climate change on the Middle East. Those projects were models for other regional collaboration designed to strengthen mutual aid and strengthen regional political, economic, and the climate stability. The freezing of cooperation interferes the challenge of the countries of the regional that may be greatly affected by the climate change. The second one, as long as conflict countries is spread, it will have negative impact on the global economy, availability of budget, and the willingness of countries to allocate resource to climate issues. Third, most countries have taken a position and sided with the side may combined system of consideration that will harm the ability to reach broad agreement required to address the challenge of the global climate risk. Taking the position on one side of the environmental climate or organization headed by Greta Thunberg harm to a professional credibility that will be a tribute to the climate issues and strengthen the groups that deny climate change on the ground that the climate crisis is a political and not scientist opinion. The other thing is the negative impact on the energy economy. Fear of the deterioration into regional war is expected to affect on fuel market and lead to damage the supply chain and the stability of the market. The supply chain, the joining of the Houthis in the combat and the damage to the ship already today leads to an increase in insurance expenses, the extension of shipping lanes, and increasing and security expenses and security on the shipping lanes and ships. Damage on freedom of navigation may get treated to the point of global disruption to supply chain due to it began major shipping route in global maritime traffics. The extension of shipping routes is expected to lead to significant increase in fossil fuel combination and greenhouse gas emission. And the last one is sea pollution. The Houthis attacked the merchant ships in the shipping lanes has already resulted in damage to the ships and split fuel into the sea that may lead ecological disaster. So those the most the biggest issues that I see that can influence in our region. So, but in other hand, we can see when we look forward to the day after the war, we can see some. I can share some insight from the day after the war. I think we have the chance for international cooperation that will be required to restore the Gaza area. We need to supply water, energy, food. We will need dealing with sea level rise, heat waves, and more. And we can plan the Gaza Strip to be more resilient to climate change and have some and build a new relationship, partnerships with the other regional countries to promote our area resilience.
Thank you so much, Victor, and thank you to all the panelists. I know it was a little more complicated to communicate, but we're glad to have all of you. What I'd like to do now is go through some of the questions, and those people who want to answer from the panel are certainly welcome to do so. The first question that was posed was one posed by Mohammed Elazrak, and I hope I pronounced your name correct. He would asked if Miss Cohen's presentation would be available, and I have since inquired from Galit, and she very generously said she will make it available. So we will have that I think, very informative and comprehensive available on the website of the Israel Studies and the FSI Center at Stanford. Subsequently, Katie Vigiant asks, who is going to pay for the infrastructure needed in Gaza? And I think that's sort of a part of a broader question about the potential for putting together a regional consortium of governments who are interested in the restoration of Gaza. If any of you have ideas of any progress or even visions for how that might take place, because the $18 billion price tag, which we saw, is a steep place. So and people desperately are going to need these basic services and environmental infrastructure. So we'll just run the order that we ran through before. Galit, you can have the first shot. Dorit Bennett is with us, so if you want to ask her, we appreciate her flexibility on the communications. Galit, if you'd like to.
This is my opinion. Okay. Of course, we are speaking about the consortium, large consortium of governments around us, which could include the let's say the U.S. allies countries, supporting, of course, by U.S. But this is all depend of the future in the of the Gaza Strip and the Palestinian Authority, because we had discussion with some aid organizations from Europe, from those areas, and also from our area, those governments that I mentioned before, and they said it's all about if Israel will look and will vision the two-state solutions, then we'll get in. And we will support the rehabilitation, the restoration of the Gaza Strip, and if this is the vision. But if Israel will not say that the two-state solutions, this is the vision, that this is what we're looking for, so we are not getting in, and we are not going to put our money again, and then it would destroy 10 years after. So this depends what is going to be here. What is going to be the government of Israel decision? What is going to be the other parties' decision? What's going to be the U.S. decision? And but definitely, there is a positive sympathy to rehabilitate and restore this area if we are going to two-state solution.
Thanks. Tarek, would you like to weigh in on this issue as well?
Yeah, let me repeat what I said. Look, the rebuilding Gaza will take years, and people in Gaza cannot wait for the infrastructure to be rebuilt. And the solution of the Arava Institute is immediate solutions, off-grid technologies to generate electricity, to generate drinking water, to treat the wastewater, to recycle the building rebels. The Arava Institute already built a coalition of organizations, Palestinian organizations, Israeli organizations, international organizations. We are in touch with also countries in the EU, with some organizations from the US. We started our fundraising efforts to buy these technologies and wait for the right moment to send them into Gaza. And we have track of record working in Gaza with our Palestinian partners. We have our partners on the ground that they can determine the need of the people, the location of these technologies. This needs full coordination again with the governments in the region, especially the Israeli government too. So the coalition is ready to go. Fundraising is in progress. We managed to fundraise small amount of the money that's needed for these projects. I'm not talking about billions, probably tens of millions of dollars, with these right off-grid technologies that can help people survive until the infrastructure is rebuilt in Gaza.
Anybody else want to relate to the question before we move to the next question? So Farouk Ahmad asks, Galit mentioned air pollution in relation to corpses buried in the rubble. Shouldn't there be a plan to individually recover bodies, and what delay impose that? And he has a related question about this issue. So he wants to know, as part of the environmental cleanup, what about the exhuming of human bodies? Does anybody have any insights, ideas on that very, very painful issue?
I will say that surely it should be getting human rights, human treating and collecting and put it to in the best way. And I don't want to take insight to the politics and so on, but for the Israeli sides, it took us days and days to collect all the bodies, all the burning bodies, and also under the construction and all over this area. So probably it will take also in Gaza. And I hope that they will take this very important, let's say, role and activity to do so, and to give the humanity a condition and solutions to those people.
There was another question by Katie Vigilant. She said, as stated earlier in this webinar, all countries and lands in the region share environmental resources. Why not treat the reconstruction of Gaza the same way as reconstruction in Israel? So I think that the obvious answer is obviously that the sources of funding for reconstructing Israel are going to probably be local, internal, and not international. But I was curious there in general to hear maybe from Victor, whether you all have, as the sustainability officer, how do you see your role in trying to influence the decisions made on both sides of the border to make sure that the environment receives some sort of consideration?
I can say that we involve in some environmental subject during the war. About the next day, it's not clear. We have too many questions. Who going to be our partners? We know that we need countries and we don't need organization like Arava Institute and others. So how we can go, because we have no idea how we're going to rebuild Gaza. I think the environmental issues is part of that. So I'm not sure do we have now the question for that.
I would also ask, we saw that a high percentage of the environmental infrastructure, the desalination plants, solar fields, the sewage treatment facilities have been damaged. To what extent are these, can they be restored and renovated? In other words, is this a total loss where you have to start from scratch, or can some of these infrastructures be salvaged? Tarek, do you have any sense of what it would take to get some of these basic services getting going again?
Yes, some of these technologies need to start from scratch. We actually, the Arava Institute helped in building a solar field in the southern part of Gaza, and unfortunately, this solar field was totally destroyed. It's a field that was supposed to produce close to 3 megawatts of solar electricity to actually provide, clinics and hospitals in the southern part of Gaza with the electricity that they need. Unfortunately, all the system is damaged. We need to start from the scratch. The desalination plants, we really don't have any data. Unfortunately, our partners cannot travel within Gaza. Even the systems that we have in Gaza, we do not have any data about them. So the lack of data actually prevents them from evaluating the current situation and needs in the Gaza Strip. Talking about some of the wastewater treatment plants, we know that some of them are still, partially safe. but lack of electricity prevents them from fully operate. So some of the systems, they can be, constructed partially. Some of them we need to start from the scratch. But look, the technology is there, the will is there, and there is a huge need for capacity building. I mentioned that almost 1.5 million people are below the age of 30, and these people need to have the right skills to contribute to rebuild Gaza, and there will be a regional regional cooperation need to build this capacity for this amount of young people to rebuild their homeland, which is Gaza.
I received a second reminder from Farouk Ahmad, and he says that I skipped his second question, and I apologize. So let me go ahead and read that as he wrote it. He asks, what about assumptions around residential construction? Are you assuming, I assume, are Israelis assuming that the Palestinians will be evicted so the recovery process can be a greenfield? Or he asked, to what extent will next of kin be notified that will delay it? I guess he was hoping to know more about what delays would take place in the reconstruction process because of the complicated situation. I don't know if anybody's done an assessment about how long this is going to take and what are the obstacles. Victor, does your agency at all consider the environmental or the reconstruction issues? Is this something, or is this another department in the security infrastructure network?
No, my department is not dealing with that. Still not, because as I mentioned before, it's too early. We don't have any vision about how it's going to be after the war. Who are going to be the partners? So fortunately, I not have any news about it.
Alon, may I
Please.
say a few words here? Yeah, we in our coalition, we have an organization that used to recycle the building rebels in Gaza to, prepare building blocks. And we have, again, a working group on this topic. How can we recycle this rubble to use it in reconstructing some of the buildings? We have also a working group that looks into green buildings in Gaza. This is I don't want to say opportunity, but it's needed to have also environmentally designed green buildings in Gaza Strip. But this will take years. Yeah.
I assume that Dorit is still with us, Dorit Bennett, and I'd like to ask her a question about solar energy or renewable energy as a regional resource. One of the visions that we all have, I think, is the notion that our area should not continue to be an energy island, but should benefit from electricity. And I think that there was mention made of Project Prosperity, which for the first time really envisioned import of electricity, solar, green, clean electricity from Jordan into Israel. And my question is, in the rebuilding of the Gaza envelope communities around the Gaza Strip, is there any notion or any hope for a regional solution, or is the recent war made confidence and trust so low that everybody's going to be more energy island than ever? So I'm just sort of curious to hear your feelings about that.
Yes. So there was a big project that was led by one of the mayors over there, the municipal mayors, Leo Lichtenstein, that was killed, and he looked at 1.5 gigawatts of solar energy along the Gaza border. That would be a mutual solar field. So they give send solar to Gaza, to the city and the citizens from Gaza, and also for the Israeli side. This was a huge project, and I sent you a video about this project. So it will be part of the presentation in the web, when you will put everything on the web. Right now, they are continuing looking at this project. a lot of military questions are there. If we can do along the border solar field, or we need to leave these fields as sterile fields. And about the dual solar use, that it will be to Gaza and to Israel, or maybe a joint venture to solar field along the border. We should be very, very optimistic to do that and don't let it down. But I'm very pessimistic in the coming 3 years till we build our building blocks of faith between us.
Thank you. I'm reading the chat and I see Ethan McMahon, an expert from the US EPA, has said perhaps we did not adequately address Farouk's question. And it dovetails with one that Katie Vigilant reiterates. And that is the question, does anybody have ideas what will happen to the Gaza population during reconstruction? Is there assumption that people have to be forcibly evicted? If anybody has an opinion about that, an idea, there were 2 questions about that, and I don't want people think that we are evading questions, even if they're complicated and not easy answers.
I say that during the time, probably they will have some temporary places to live, like other places when there is an earthquake or something like this. So building some temporary places, and then it's better to be as much as close to their original place and the place that they have to come back. So they can have, the community together, building the schools and those community facilities that needs. It's better if they will be very close to the original place. So and then starting to build those residential area and all what they need in the infrastructure, as we said before. But there is examples all over the world that it could work. And I hope that it could work here too. We can say about Israel that we have displaced tens of thousands of peoples from around this area that attack in this war, in the 7th of October, and they displaced to another places, living together, the communities, and then they will come back a few years after. They will come back to the kibbutzim, to those it's not cities, but it's a settlement that is around there. We have displaced people in the north, so they're not going to come back to their places, and they destroyed most of the houses. The residential houses also destroyed in the north, inside Israel. So probably they will need again the same.
I might mention just at a personal note, I know that Galit comes from Sderot, which is one of the towns that was most damaged and attacked. I hope your family as well and everything is there. I think what we'll do now as we wrap up, everybody who spoke will get a minute for have an opportunity to have a 1-minute sort of summary, maybe something they thought they would say or something that they would like to add before we close it up. And I think we'll just start with Dorit, because hers is the most, she's holding on, and I'd like to get her, and we'll just go around the circle and we'll go backwards. Go ahead. Dorit, there's something you want to add or let the people who are with us know as we wrap up?
I think that even though all the tragedy happened, we have a second chance to do things better. Also in the Israeli side regarding environment and energy, also with the relationship with Gaza. And I believe that if Israel would really go in the right way and find the way to reveal everything and bring life back there to the envelope, we should do things better than we did before.
Well, that was a wonderful thing to end on. I probably should have let you speak last because I can't top that. Tarek, what would you like to say as we move towards?
I agree 100% with what Dorit said. Regional cooperation needs to bring people together, to build understanding, to build trust Palestinians will stay here forever. Israelis will stay here forever. And we need to find a way of dialogue. And science diplomacy, environmental diplomacy is the answer. What happened in the 7th of October happened because of the lack of knowledge of the other side. And this is, again, a great chance for us to rethink what happened and to rebuild a better future for all of us.
Wonderfully put. Victor, would you like to add something as we wrap up?
I think we have the opportunity to shape the Middle East if we look forward and find the partners, build a partnership, and go forward on I hope in optimistic future to our region.
And Galit Cohen from the INSS, some words of hope as we wrap up.
I think that the only strategy that we have to build up from this war, from this disaster time for us, and also for the Palestinian, and for all this region, just to build a new coalition, supported by US, new coalition with the ally countries, Egypt, Jordan, UAE, Saudi. I hope that Saudi will be together. And this coalition will work together and to build this new Middle East, and working together. This is the only way we can survive here, Israel and all the rest. So I hope that we will find a way to do so and to go out from this war with hope and a new situation.
Thank you very much for all those very, very heartwarming comments. Professor Diamond, if you wanted to say a word in summary, otherwise I will wrap it up. Yes, please.
No, I'd just like to thank the participants for a very powerful, informative, and in the end, also moving analysis. There's going to be a staggering challenge of reconstruction when this war is over, and hopefully we can get started on it as soon as possible. And as Joe Biden once said, build back better.
As the moderator for the talk, it's my pleasure to thank all of the people who came, our 4 Israeli panelists who have gone way into the night. For those who don't know, it's pushing 11:30, and look at them, still articulate and still hopeful. And so I really appreciate that. Thanks to the Israel Studies program at Stanford University at the Freeman Spogli Institute, to Professor Diamond, Kate Tominska, who engineered a lot of work behind the scenes to make everybody on board. And for you who stayed with us, this session will be posted on the website along with PowerPoint so that people who want to go into greater depth. But we have only begun this discussion about the reconstruction. Let's hope that very quickly we can end the destruction and the death and the suffering and move forward to a time of renewal. I wish everybody a happy Passover, which is a spring festival, a symbol of renewal. Ramadan Kareem for those who are sitting in a happy Eid. We should have better days. Thank you very much. Signing out.